Welcome to Veggies and Herbs. I am Ruben Molale and I'm excited to be back with the July edition of what we are planting and what we are growing series. Now, if you have been following along, we have been having quite a great journey since March with some minor setbacks. But in today's video, we will be discussing some of the crops or vegetables that you can still plant in July. Now, since we started off the series, we have planted quite a number of cool season crops. We started off with some cabbage. I'm anticipating that the first batch that we planted in March should be ready in a couple of weeks. And also in the other beds, we have also transplanted more cabbage, just different varieties. We have also the broccoli that we have planted earlier in the season. They are actually making some beautiful progress. The beetroot as well as the carrots is still growing quite steadily. We've also planted some broad beans. They are sprouting quite well. And the peas that we have planted in the previous months are starting to develop some beautiful purple flower. Now we've also planted some potatoes in a black growing bag. We have been continually filling the bag with compost to improve the growth of the plant, but also just to increase the yield. So the potatoes in the black bag, we will just allow them to grow further and mature naturally. Last month, we also planted some potatoes in my raised bed. Potatoes are actually starting to sprout just after 2 weeks. So I'm very happy that the seed potatoes that we planted in the raised bed is starting to actually sprout. And you can also see that the onions that we transplanted last month, the onion sets, are also starting to adapt quite nicely to the garden. During the series, we also have had quite a number of harvests. We have harvested since March some butternut, some heat-loving crops that was maturing in those months. So we have harvested some broccoli, some of the Tahitian butternut squash. And last week, I harvested some of the sweet potatoes that have been growing in my in-ground garden. If you want to see that harvest, I will put a link of that video in the description. So in today's video, I will be sharing with you some of the crops that I will be planting in the section where I've harvested some of my sweet potatoes. So I will be firstly sharing some of the items that I will be sowing directly into the garden. And then later on, we will be chatting about some of the things that I'm starting in trays this month. So one of the first things that I will be sowing directly into the garden is some spinach. We have been having quite a good harvest of spinach since we started them earlier in March. So today I just will be sowing a second sowing in my in-ground bed. The ones that I've started off in this container seem like the snails are having a feast on them. So it is time therefore for me to sow the second sowing of. The next crop that I will also be sowing directly will definitely be some carrots. And for my climate, it is actually a perfect time to sow carrots because since it is our rainy season, the rain will help to keep the soil moist so that those carrots can actually germinate much easily. Another root crop that I will also be sowing into this bed will be some beetroot. So similarly, I will also just make a trench and sow some of the beetroot into the garden. For this month, I will be sowing some of my peas in around this wigwam structure. Now, with regards to the items that will be growing, what will be starting indoors will be some cabbage. So for me, cabbage and the brassicas are the foundation of my winter vegetable garden. But I've made a video where I discuss all the cool season crops. So you can determine what are the crops that you and your family consume on a regular basis, and make sure that you plant accordingly. So once I've harvested those cabbages, then I can always transplant more seedlings into my garden. So I'm therefore starting off additional cabbage plants. I've also not harvested all the sweet potatoes out of the bed next to where I've just sown the crops. So once I harvested those sweet potatoes, then I can again transplant these plants. Since we are in preparation for the spring, I'm also starting off some of my tomato plants now. I would like my tomato plants to be a decent size. So I am starting them off indoors to allow them approximately 2 months or so to be big enough so that when I transplant them later in the season that they can be big. So I'm starting off with some bush tomatoes indoors this month in preparation for the upcoming spring and summer season. So just to allow the tomatoes to grow adequately, that's the reason why I'm thinking it's best for me to start off some of the tomatoes right now. Some other items that I'm also starting off is also some of the sprouting broccoli. I think it's a variety that can grow quite quickly. So I'm gonna try sow another batch that I will maybe grow in my growing bags, depending on the space available in my garden. So these are the items that I'm currently starting off in my garden. Please let me know what you are growing at the moment. If you want to follow and see what we have planted previously, I'll put a link of all those videos on the site. But thank you so much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you in the next video. Keep on sowing and growing.